Let's set something straight. Attractiveness isn't about being perfect, being liked, or being the loudest in the room. It's about who you are when no one's watching. True attractiveness, the kind that turns heads, earns respect, and commands the room, comes from depth, not decoration. Today, I want to talk about 5 powerful behaviors that make a mature woman not only deeply attractive, but unshakably magnetic. These aren't surface-level traits. These are behavioral muscles built through life experience, healing, and growth. And once you start embodying them, you stop chasing, because everything worthy starts coming to you. There is something unmistakably powerful about a woman who communicates with certainty. She doesn't have to shout to be heard or over-explain to be understood. When she speaks, people listen, not because her voice is the loudest, but because her words carry weight. This is the energy of self-assured communication, and it is one of the most magnetic, mature, and attractive qualities a woman can develop. A self-assured woman doesn't speak to prove her worth. She already knows it. She isn't performing for approval. She's expressing her truth directly and calmly. There's no begging for validation, no dressing her words in fluff just to avoid discomfort. She knows what she wants to say, and she says it. Her tone is grounded, not aggressive. Her delivery is clear, not chaotic. And that calmness, it doesn't just happen. It's the result of deep inner work. It's the result of learning to regulate her emotions, understanding her values, and knowing that she doesn't need to convince anyone to take her seriously because she already takes herself seriously. You'll never see her talking over people just to dominate a conversation. She doesn't need to win arguments. She's not trying to be right. She's focused on being real. Her communication isn't reactive, it's responsive. That means she listens before she speaks. She processes, she reflects, and she decides what's worth her energy. That pause, that moment before she responds, that's where the magic is. That's where maturity lives. It's in the restraint, in the discipline, in the ability to stay centered when everyone else is spinning out. And that confidence in communication isn't just about what she says, it's also about what she chooses not to say. She knows silence can be more powerful than 1,000 words. She doesn't engage in gossip, pettiness, or emotional games. She's not interested in winning approval through manipulation or charm. Her power is in her honesty. Her power is in her ability to be direct without being cruel, clear without being cold, and assertive without being aggressive. She's mastered the ability to say no without guilt. And when she says it, you can tell she means it. There's no hesitation, no defensiveness, just clarity, just certainty. And that's the kind of boundary setting that doesn't require explanation. You feel it, you respect it, because it comes from a place of deep self-worth. Self-assured communication is also rooted in emotional intelligence. She's not easily thrown off by criticism or disagreement. She can receive feedback without falling apart or becoming defensive. That's because her sense of identity isn't fragile. It's been built brick by brick through every challenge she's faced and every lesson she's learned. She knows who she is, and that knowledge becomes the filter through which she communicates. She doesn't need to defend herself against every misunderstanding. She lets people be wrong about her if they choose to be, because her piece is more important than their opinion. There's also elegance in the way she handles difficult conversations. She doesn't avoid conflict, she navigates it. She leans in when things get uncomfortable, but she does it with grace. She doesn't throw blame, she takes ownership, she doesn't explode, she explains. That ability to stay calm and focused during tension, that's a rare kind of beauty. That's emotional maturity in action. That's leadership. That's strength. You can also feel her presence when she's communicating. She maintains eye contact. She pays attention. She's not distracted or mentally rehearsing her next line. She's there, fully. And being fully present in a world full of distraction is a rare gift. It makes people feel seen. It builds trust. It's not just what she says, it's how she makes you feel while she's saying it. And let's be clear, this kind of communication doesn't mean she never struggles. It doesn't mean she never gets emotional or never makes mistakes. She's not a robot. She's a human, but she's aware. And that awareness is what keeps her evolving. She reflects. She learns. She adjusts. Every misstep becomes an opportunity to refine her message, her presence, and her impact. The most attractive thing about a mature woman who communicates with self-assurance is that she doesn't shrink to make others comfortable, nor does she puff herself up to appear powerful. She just is, grounded, real, present. And because she's no longer trying to prove herself, she creates space for others to be real too. That kind of presence isn't just attractive, it's transformative. It raises the standard for every room she walks into. If you want to cultivate this level of attractive maturity, don't start with what you say to others. Start with what you say to yourself. Your inner dialogue shapes your outer communication. Speak to yourself with honesty and kindness. Honor your truth. Don't apologize for your voice. Strengthen it. Protect it. And then speak from that place of inner certainty. Because once you learn to trust your voice, others will too. And that, more than anything, will make you unshakably magnetic. Emotional stability is not about suppressing emotions or pretending nothing affects you. It's about building the kind of inner strength that allows you to feel deeply without losing your balance. A mature woman doesn't numb her emotions. She understands them. She doesn't avoid conflict or tension. She navigates it with grace. What makes her incredibly attractive is not that she's emotionless, but that she's emotionally aware. She knows her triggers. She knows what wounds still need healing. And because of that, she doesn't allow temporary feelings to make permanent decisions. When life throws stress her way, she doesn't erupt like a volcano. She breathes, she pauses, she reflects before reacting. That's emotional maturity. It's not about being passive. It's about being powerful enough to choose your response. And in a world where many people lash out, spiral, or collapse at the first sign of discomfort, a woman who stands centered in the storm becomes a calming force for everyone around her. Her emotional stability is rooted in self-knowledge. She doesn't depend on someone else to regulate her emotions. She doesn't make her partner responsible for her happiness, her peace, or her sense of worth. That responsibility is hers, and she owns it. That independence gives her this quiet strength that doesn't need to be loud to be felt. People trust her because she's consistent. She's not hot one day and cold the next. You know what you're going to get: a balanced presence, a clear mind, and a heart that isn't ruled by chaos. And that doesn't mean she doesn't feel deeply. She absolutely does. But the difference is she doesn't let pain turn her bitter or let anger control her actions. She allows herself to feel, but she doesn't drown in those feelings. She knows the difference between an emotion and a reaction. She understands that the emotion is just data. It's telling her something. So instead of ignoring it or exploding from it, she listens, she learns, and then she decides what to do with that information. This level of emotional intelligence makes her incredibly magnetic. Why? Because people crave safety, not just physical safety, emotional safety. They want to know they can be themselves without being judged or punished. And when you're around a woman who is emotionally steady, you feel safe, you feel seen, you feel like you can breathe. That's what makes her unforgettable. She's also emotionally generous. She doesn't take everything personally. If someone's rude, she sees it for what it is, a reflection of them, not a mirror of her worth. She doesn't escalate drama, she dissolves it. She knows how to step back, assess the moment, and respond from wisdom, not ego. That kind of energy is healing. It softens the room. It disarms the aggressive. It inspires the wounded, and it creates connection. But let's be honest, it takes real work to get there. You don't become emotionally stable by accident. You get there by facing your own patterns, by healing your past, by learning not to run from discomfort, but to sit with it long enough to grow from it. You start identifying what triggers you, and instead of blaming others, you ask, why did that hit me so hard? What wound is still open? That level of self-inquiry is what separates reactive women from powerful ones. And this is what makes a mature woman so attractive. She's not just emotionally intelligent, she's emotionally secure. You're not walking on eggshells around her. You're not guessing which version of her will show up today. You know. And that consistency, that reliability is rare, and it's beautiful. She also holds space for others to have their emotions. She doesn't invalidate them. She doesn't compete with pain. She listens, she understands, but she doesn't absorb negativity. She has boundaries. She knows that empathy doesn't mean carrying someone else's emotional burden. It means witnessing it, supporting it, but not losing yourself in it. That's emotional maturity at its finest. What makes this so magnetic is that emotional stability isn't flashy, it's not loud, it's not instantly visible, but the moment you encounter it, you feel it. It's in her posture, her tone, her decisions, her patience, her ability to walk away from nonsense, not because she's cold, but because she values peace. And that peace, it's addictive. It's the kind of energy people want to be around, not because it entertains, but because it anchors. So if you want to be a woman who stands out, not because of her looks, but because of her presence, start with emotional stability. Learn to pause, learn to breathe, learn to sit with your feelings instead of running from them. Learn to speak from clarity, not chaos. Do the work to understand your patterns and heal what's bleeding inside you. Because when you master your emotional world, you become a force in the real world. You don't just attract people, you inspire them. When a woman reaches a place in her life where purpose means more to her than popularity, everything about her begins to shift. The way she speaks changes. The way she carries herself changes. The way she makes decisions becomes sharper, more intentional. Because suddenly, she's not living to be liked. She's living to be aligned. And that shift creates a level of attractiveness that's unshakable. People can feel it, even if they don't know how to explain it. There's something magnetic about someone who knows who they are and refuses to compromise that identity for temporary applause. You see, popularity is fleeting. It's rooted in trends, opinions, and outside noise. It forces people to bend, to perform, to shrink themselves or exaggerate themselves to fit into whatever version of acceptable the world is projecting at that moment. But purpose? Purpose is internal. It doesn't shift with the seasons. It doesn't demand a mask. It doesn't need the crowd's cheer to validate its worth. Purpose is what you wake up for. It's what you choose when no one is clapping. It's the reason behind your no when you're pressured to say yes. It's the compass you hold on to when the path isn't clear. And when a woman is led by that kind of compass, she becomes unstoppable. The mature woman doesn't waste her energy chasing popularity because she understands what it costs. Popularity asks you to betray yourself in small doses, to say what you don't mean, agree when you don't feel right, show up in ways that make others comfortable, even when they make you feel small. Over time, that self-betrayal adds up. It becomes resentment. It becomes anxiety. It becomes that silent scream inside you that knows you're meant for more, but you're too scared to lose the people clapping to go find it. Purpose doesn't let you live like that. It calls you higher. It demands that you make choices that serve your future, not just your ego. The beauty of choosing purpose is that it attracts exactly what's meant for you, not what's convenient, not what's loud, not what's trendy, but what's right. Purpose attracts depth. It attracts respect. It brings the right people into your life, the kind who see you for who you are, not for who you're pretending to be. It also repels what no longer fits. And that's a gift even when it's painful. Because losing popularity might feel like a loss, but losing your sense of self is a far deeper wound. And once you've tasted the peace of living in alignment, you stop apologizing for walking away from anything that threatens it. When a woman is guided by purpose, she doesn't look around to see what everyone else is doing. She doesn't need to compare her timeline to someone else's. She's too focused on what she came here to do. And that kind of focus, that kind of clarity, it's powerful. Because while others are seeking applause, she's building legacy. While others are chasing trends, she's mastering her craft. While others are trying to fit in, she's standing out by simply being authentic. Not perfect, not polished, but real. And that reality speaks louder than any performance ever could. Purpose gives a woman permission to choose discomfort now for peace later. It's what helps her say no to the party so she can wake up early and work on her goals. It's what helps her walk away from a toxic relationship even when she's scared to be alone. It's what gives her the courage to take the less traveled road, the one that doesn't come with guarantees but does come with growth. And through that growth, she becomes more attractive, not just in how she looks, but in how she lives. She's radiant not because life is easy, but because she's doing it on her terms. We live in a world that rewards performance. Social media has turned popularity into a currency, but real fulfillment can't be found in the comments or the likes or the claps. It lives in the quiet moments, in the decisions you make when no one is watching. It lives in how you treat people who can't offer you anything. It lives in how you stay true to your word, even when it's hard. And the woman who builds her life around those principles, she doesn't need to chase anything because her presence, her energy, her peace, that pulls people in. So yes, a mature woman is attractive, not because she fits into the world's definition of what's popular or trendy, but because she's brave enough to redefine what success, beauty, and value mean to her. She understands that her life is hers to design, that her time is sacred, that her energy is valuable, and that every decision she makes, every step she takes, reflects a deeper mission. One that isn't about being seen, but about being aligned. That kind of purpose-driven living, it's irresistible. There's something deeply powerful about a woman who knows how to protect her peace without making a scene. You see it in her posture, her silence, her calm refusal to engage in anything that drains her energy. Boundaries are not walls. They're not about shutting people out or being cold. They're lines drawn from self-awareness and self-respect. And a mature woman knows exactly where those lines begin and end, and she doesn't cross them, not even for people she loves. That's not cruelty. That's wisdom. Saying no isn't always easy, especially for women who've been conditioned to please, to say yes even when it hurts, to keep the peace at the expense of their own well-being. But at some point she wakes up. She realizes that peace without personal integrity isn't peace at all. It's just silence wrapped in resentment. And that's when everything shifts. She starts honoring her own needs, not with anger, not with guilt, but with grace. She learns to say, this doesn't work for me. She learns to exit conversations that are going nowhere. She walks away from people who only show up when they need something. And she does it without burning the world down, without explanations, without drama. That kind of boundary setting doesn't make her harsh. It makes her clear, and clarity is kind. People may not always like her boundaries, but they'll respect her for having them because she respects herself first. A mature woman doesn't entertain guilt tripping, manipulation, or emotional games. She's not afraid of being misunderstood or called difficult. She's more committed to living in alignment than living in approval. And that right there, that unshakable commitment to self is what makes her so attractive. What most people don't understand is that boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about guiding your own life. A boundary says, this is how I take care of myself. It's not about punishing anyone. It's about showing up for yourself, When a mature woman sets a boundary, she's not trying to hurt anyone, she's trying to heal herself. She knows that without boundaries, even the best of intentions get buried under exhaustion and resentment. She's done with overgiving, she's done with people pleasing, she's done confusing being kind with being a doormat. Kindness has limits, and she's learned to draw that line firmly but kindly. It's not just about saying no to people. It's about saying no to situations, environments, and behaviors that no longer align. It's about not picking up the phone for chaos, not responding to drama, not tolerating disrespect, even in small forms. It's about protecting your energy like it's sacred, because it is. And that kind of behavior doesn't just change your relationships, it transforms your entire life. People will test you. That's just the truth. They'll push to see if you really mean what you say, but the mature woman no longer bends just to keep others comfortable. She doesn't abandon herself to be accepted. If a situation threatens her peace, her growth, or her values, she steps back, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. She doesn't argue. She doesn't chase closure. She just lets go. And in that letting go, she becomes more powerful, more centered, more magnetic than ever before. Her boundaries are not rigid, they're fluid and based on what she's learned. She knows that life is constantly changing, and so is she. Her boundaries evolve as she grows. They are not reactions, they are choices. Every no she says is a yes to herself. And when you start living that way, everything changes. Your confidence rises, your peace deepens, your circle gets smaller but stronger. You stop being drained and you start being inspired. This is the kind of woman who walks into a room and doesn't need to say a word. People feel her energy. They know she's not someone you can play with. Not because she's cold, but because she's whole. Her energy says, I know who I am, I know what I deserve, and I'm not afraid to walk away from anything that's not aligned with that. And that silent, unwavering strength is magnetic. There's beauty and softness, yes, but there's unmatched power in a woman who's soft and strong. A woman who knows how to care without losing herself. A woman who can love deeply, but also walk away when love becomes pain. That's real maturity. That's real attractiveness. It's not about being hard, it's about being clear. It's not about building walls, it's about knowing your worth so clearly that you refuse to shrink, bend, or break for any. So when she sets a boundary, she's not pushing people away, she's pulling herself closer to her truth. She's not being mean, she's being real. And if you've ever wondered why some women walk with so much power and peace, this is why. Because they're not available for anything that costs them their clarity, their energy, or their dignity. They're not being rude, they're just finally choosing themselves, and that is always, always attractive. A woman who embodies self-respect doesn't just carry herself differently, she lives differently. Her self-respect is not something she performs, it's something she is. It's in the way she speaks, the way she walks, the way she chooses her circle, and the way she holds space for herself. She's not arrogant, she's not loud about it, but you can feel it. She doesn't lower her standards just because she's been waiting too long. She doesn't stay in places where she's only tolerated. And she sure doesn't chase anything that requires her to shrink. Self-respect means she knows her value even when no one's clapping. It means she's stopped begging to be seen because she sees herself. She knows that the way others treat her is a reflection of how she allows herself to be treated. And that's where her power comes from. Her standards are set from the inside out. She doesn't need someone to validate her worth because she's already chosen to believe in it. She's done the inner work. She's fought the silent battles, and through that process, she's learned that anything that costs her self-respect is too expensive. This isn't about being stubborn. This is about being clear. When she says she won't accept less, it's not a threat. It's a boundary. It's a quiet knowing. She's not trying to prove her worth by working overtime in relationships, by accepting crumbs and calling it love, or by silencing her needs to keep the peace. She's not interested in convincing anyone to see her value. Why? Because she knows that real love doesn't require real friendships don't require chasing. Real respect doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being authentic. And here's the thing. When a woman holds herself with self-respect, she becomes magnetic. Not because she's performing, but because she's aligned. She attracts people who mirror the same level of respect she gives herself. She no longer feels the need to chase people who don't choose her because she knows that being chosen is not a reward for abandoning yourself. It's a result of owning who you are without apology. She's not afraid to walk away if something doesn't align. In fact, walking away is often her power move, not out of bitterness, but out of deep clarity. She stopped justifying herself. She stopped explaining why she deserves better. She simply lives in a way that says, I will not accept less than I deserve. That quiet confidence shakes people, especially those who are used to control, manipulation, or games. She doesn't play games. She doesn't need to. She's too grounded for that. And if you don't meet her with the same respect she gives herself, she'll simply step back. Not with drama, not with a fight, just with peace. Because peace is what she protects now, above all else. She also knows that self-respect doesn't mean being hard or closed off. It means being open with discernment. It means being kind, but not at the expense of your dignity. It means loving deeply, but not losing yourself in the process. It means saying, I love you, but I won't abandon myself to keep you. And that kind of strength isn't loud, it's felt. She can walk into any room and not need to be the center of attention. Her presence alone carries weight because she's not trying to be someone else. She's just being real. And in a world full of masks, being real is rare, and rare is attractive. She's not afraid of solitude either. In fact, she embraces it. Because being alone no longer scares her, settling does. She's not interested in filling voids with temporary people. She's not here to be someone's project or plaything. She's not here to be almost loved. She knows that the love she gives is valuable, and she's willing to wait for someone who sees it, matches it, and honors it. Until then, she builds herself. She invests in her peace. She sharpens her mind. She explores her passions. She heals. She grows. She leads herself. And that is the essence of self-respect. It makes you the leader of your life. It turns you from someone who reacts to someone who chooses. You don't take whatever life throws at you. You decide what you allow, what you attract, and what you walk away from. That's not ego. That's evolution. And every time you choose yourself with grace, you reinforce the truth that you are worthy, not someday, not when you're more perfect, not when someone finally sees it, but now. So no, it's not about being flawless. It's about being faithful to yourself. It's about choosing your worth over your wounds, choosing standards over scarcity, choosing peace over pressure. When a woman operates from this space, everything about her changes. Her eyes carry wisdom, her voice carries certainty, her steps are steady, and her life reflects the truth she's decided to believe. I am enough, and I will never beg anyone to see that again. She listens like it matters, not because she's trying to appear kind, but because she actually cares, and that, in today's world, is rare and incredibly attractive. Deep listening and empathy are not just soft skills. They are emotional strengths that signal confidence, maturity, and a strong sense of self. A mature woman doesn't rush to speak over someone to prove she's right. She doesn't interrupt with advice or jump in to make everything about her. Instead, she holds space. She allows silence to be part of the conversation. She pays attention not just to the words, but to the pauses, the tone, the energy behind them. And when she speaks, it's after she's understood, not assumed. That kind of presence is magnetic. It creates a sense of safety, one where people feel seen, heard, and valued. In a world where most people listen to reply, a woman who listens to understand becomes unforgettable. She asks questions that go deeper than surface level small talk. She doesn't just say, "How are you?" out of habit. She genuinely wants to know. People walk away from her feeling lighter, stronger, and more connected to themselves because her energy affirms them without judgment. This behavior doesn't come from people pleasing. It doesn't come from needing to be liked. It comes from doing the inner work. A mature woman has developed the capacity to hold others emotionally because she's held herself through her own storms. She's cried through nights no one knew about. She's battled self-doubt, silence, heartbreak, and disappointment and survived all of it. So now, when someone else is struggling, she doesn't dismiss it. She doesn't rush to fix it. She recognizes pain because she's met her own. And that recognition builds trust. Empathy isn't just about emotions. It's also about perspective. A mature woman can see situations from multiple angles. She doesn't label people good or bad. She knows that behavior is complex, that people carry stories we never hear about, and that reacting from judgment only fuels more division. So she slows down. She observes. She considers context before casting conclusions. That level of awareness makes her an extraordinary communicator. People respect her because she's not reactive. She listens before she labels. She reflects before she responds. And in doing so, she influences without force. When a woman operates from this emotional depth, she elevates everyone around her. Friends feel more seen, partners feel more loved, even strangers feel calmer in her presence. It's not about her trying to make people like her. It's about her making people feel like they matter. And there's nothing more beautiful than that. That kind of energy can't be faked. You can't rehearse it. It comes from growth, healing, and emotional intelligence. Qualities that are often undervalued, but always unforgettable. In relationships, this changes everything. She doesn't play mind games. She communicates clearly. If something bothers her, she doesn't stew in silence or explode in anger. She expresses it with clarity and compassion. And when her partner speaks, she truly hears them. That creates emotional safety, and emotional safety is the foundation of attraction that lasts. Because physical attraction might catch someone's eye, but emotional intelligence captures their soul. This level of listening and empathy also shows up in conflict. A mature woman doesn't need to win the argument. She wants to understand. She's not in a power struggle. She's in a connection space. She's willing to take accountability when needed, and she's strong enough to stand her ground without becoming cold. She doesn't need to be loud to be heard. She knows the strength of a calm voice. She knows the power of silence. And she knows that empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everything. It means being willing to hold space for someone's experience, even when it's different from her own. When she walks into a room, she's not demanding attention. She's commanding it quietly, just by how she makes others feel. There's no performance. No need for approval, just presence. And that presence is healing. That presence is powerful. People remember how she made them feel long after the conversation is over. That's influence. That's legacy. That's true attractiveness. A woman who leads with empathy and deep listening sets herself apart in a world that often moves too fast to notice the little things. She is the pause in the noise, the calm in the storm, the clarity in the chaos. And the older she gets, the more she sharpens this ability, not as a tactic, but as a way of being. She doesn't just hear with her ears, she hears with her heart. And in doing that, she doesn't just connect, she transforms. When a woman becomes selective with her energy, everything in her life begins to shift. It's not just about avoiding negativity or cutting people off. It's about being deliberate with her time, her thoughts, her presence, and her peace. She understands that energy is a limited resource, and once it's gone, she doesn't get it back. So she becomes wise about where and how she spends it. Not because she's cold, not because she's arrogant, but because she knows her worth and she's no longer available for what drains her. You see, most people waste their energy on things that don't grow them. Fights that go nowhere, relationships that only take, endless overthinking, trying to please people who are never satisfied, defending themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. But a mature woman sees through all that. She realizes that not everything deserves a reaction. Not every invitation to chaos needs a response. Silence becomes her strategy. Distance becomes her peace. And discernment becomes her power. When you're intentional with your energy, you stop proving your point to everyone. You stop attending every argument you're invited to. You stop bending yourself to fit places you've outgrown. You recognize that peace is more valuable than being right, and growth is more important than getting even. That shift changes how you move. You start protecting your mornings from stress. You stop opening your heart to people who only want access, not connection. You stop pouring endlessly into cups that would never overflow for you in return. It's not easy at first. You'll feel guilty. You'll wonder if you're being selfish. But here's the truth. Being selective with your energy is the highest form of self-respect. It means you've stopped negotiating your boundaries. You've stopped offering discounts on your soul. You've stopped acting like your energy is a free buffet for everyone to consume. You've grown. And growth always requires you to walk away from something or someone that once made sense. People may call you distant. They may not understand the new version of you. That's fine. You're not for everyone, and you were never meant to be. You're not responsible for how others react to your boundaries. You're responsible for honoring what keeps you aligned, healthy, and sane. When you begin to invest your energy in things that actually uplift you, your purpose, your passions, your well-being, your peace, you attract a different quality of life, a different kind of love, a different level of fulfillment. That's the thing about energy. It's magnetic. When you stop engaging in drama, gossip, fear-based thinking, or people-pleasing, you raise your frequency. And when your frequency shifts, so does what you attract. You stop chasing and start receiving. You stop forcing and start flowing. The right people notice. The wrong people fade. And you no longer grieve their absence. You celebrate your clarity. There's so much power in learning to protect your space. Not everything needs your presence. Not everyone deserves your response. A mature woman knows this. She walks into rooms knowing that her energy is a contribution, not a request. She doesn't beg for seats at tables where she isn't valued. She creates her own. She doesn't over-explain herself to people who aren't listening. She conserves her breath for conversations that matter. She values her own time so deeply that she won't waste it convincing someone of her worth. And here's the beautiful twist. When you become this selective, you start showing up differently for yourself. You rest when you need it without guilt. You say no without explaining yourself. You decline drama even when it begs for your attention. You commit to routines that energize you. You become more grounded, more joyful, more radiant, not because of what you added to your life, but because of what you subtracted. This is the quiet revolution of becoming a woman who protects her energy. She doesn't need the world to understand her choices. She just needs to be at peace with them. She knows that the more she aligns her energy with her truth, the more the world reflects back opportunities, people, and experiences that match her soul. And that's when she truly becomes powerful, not loud, not flashy, but deeply magnetic. It's not magic. It's alignment. It's being intentional. It's choosing yourself every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because that's when it matters most. Radiant independence is not about isolation or having a hardened shell around your heart. It's about building a relationship with yourself that is so honest, so nurturing, and so empowering that you no longer look outward to be completed. It means you've done the inner work to understand that your value doesn't hinge on who chooses you, who validates you, or who stays. It's the quiet strength of knowing that you can stand on your own. Not because you have to, but because you've learned how to. A woman who embodies radiant independence isn't afraid of solitude. In fact, she embraces it. She uses time alone to reflect, to grow, to heal. She isn't constantly seeking company to avoid facing herself. She meets herself in silence. She listens to her own thoughts. She works through the uncomfortable emotions that most people try to escape. And because of that, she develops emotional maturity that becomes impossible to fake. She doesn't measure her worth by her relationship status. Her identity isn't defined by whether she's married, single, dating, or desired. Her sense of self is rooted in deeper soil. She knows who she is when she's alone, and more importantly, she likes who she is when no one's watching. That's powerful. That kind of woman doesn't tolerate half love or lukewarm respect. She'd rather be alone than accepted conditionally. When you operate from radiant independence, you don't enter relationships out of desperation or emptiness. You don't look to another person to fix your brokenness or to make you feel whole. You come already whole, already full. And because of that, the relationships you choose are different. You choose out of alignment, not out of fear. You're not clinging, you're choosing. And people can feel that energy. That energy says, I want you, but I don't need you. That energy attracts healthy, respectful, balanced love. Not codependence, disguised as passion. A woman with radiant independence also honors her own needs without guilt. She understands that taking care of herself, emotionally, physically, spiritually, isn't selfish, it's essential. She prioritizes her mental health, her growth, her peace. She sets time aside for her goals. She builds a life that reflects her values, not someone else's expectations. She doesn't apologize for not being available 24/7, for setting boundaries, for putting herself first when necessary, because she's learned that no one else can give her the life she wants. That responsibility is hers alone. She's also fiercely self-responsible. She owns her mistakes without spiraling into shame. She learns, she adapts, she grows. She doesn't blame others for her patterns. She calls herself out and does the work to break them. That accountability becomes one of her most attractive traits, because the truth is, very few people have the courage to look at themselves honestly. A woman who does that, who faces her flaws, who humbles herself without losing her worth, she becomes magnetic in a way that's impossible to fake. Radiant independence also means that she doesn't lower her standards just to be chosen. She doesn't shrink to fit in. She doesn't silence herself to be accepted. If something doesn't align with her values, she walks away, not with bitterness, but with peace. She's okay being misunderstood. She's okay being alone for a while, because she trusts herself enough to know that what's meant for her will feel aligned, not forced. She doesn't need to chase love, prove her worth, or fight for a seat at the wrong table. She builds her own table. This kind of independence creates presence. When she walks into a room, people feel it. They don't just see confidence. They sense that she knows who she is. She doesn't need to dominate or draw attention to feel seen. Her energy does that for her. She moves with calm. She speaks with clarity. She listens with intention, and people are drawn to her. Not because she's trying to be liked, but because she's unapologetically herself. The most important part of radiant independence is that it doesn't close her off to love. It deepens her capacity to love. because she's no longer loving from a place of fear or need or emptiness. She's loving from abundance. She can give without losing herself. She can care deeply without becoming dependent. She can commit fully without sacrificing her soul. That kind of love, rooted in freedom, in depth, in authenticity, is the most powerful love there is. So when a woman becomes radiantly independent, she changes the entire way she experiences life. She stops chasing. She stops proving. She stops performing. She starts being. She becomes the kind of woman who doesn't need